Today on Conversations Aloud, we're discussing the power structure in US politics and what does democracy even mean in the era of Donald Trump. We're joined by Devin Farkas, the founder of Culture Codex, a media platform based in Columbus, Ohio, which combines on-the-ground reporting, podcasts, and political organizing, particularly around the candidates and movements on what you would consider the American left. Welcome to the show, Devin.
Thanks, Hadi. I appreciate you having me on. It's a little weird being a guest because I'm normally, interviewing other people. So this is like, my first podcast that I'm invited to.
Oh.
So yeah, I really appreciate you having me,
Well,
man.
I guess we're that special that you've chosen us to be on your first. But no, that'll be good. So when we talk about the left, if I'm being honest, it's very confusing nowadays. What is left and what is right? What do you consider to be left now in U.S. politics?
Man, the left really is sort of divided if you think about it. The difference with the right is that, they're all united under like this authoritarian figure, which is Trump, obviously, and his cronies. But, the left is pretty divided between, centrist Democrats and then, you have the progressives or, Democratic socialists. So, there's kind of a weird dilemma within the party right now. And I normally work with the progressives, and at least from my perspective, that's the only way forward to defeat the Trump regime, because there's a lot of people, including some prior Republicans, that are just fed up with the quote unquote Democratic establishment. And yeah, something needs to change. And it seems like all the ideas are coming from the progressives and the social democrats.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned there kind of the right is united. I mean, I'm not based in the U.S., so you're closer to this than I am. But from what I'm seeing is that there is a bit of a split now, especially after the Iran war, where people have woken up to the fact that, hang on, this president who said no more wars is now entering in one of the biggest wars. And so they're asking a lot of questions, and there seems to be a split. There's the hardcore MAGA base, whereby Trump is this kind of prophet that he does no error, no good. Everything's a 4D chess plan. That,
Right.
and there's others that are saying, actually, this is not for what I voted for, and things need to change now.
Yeah, actually, you make a great point there because, since the Iran war, we are seeing that divide for the very first time, right? Um, Trump promised no wars, but here we are, and he's enacting this war because of Israel, and we all know that.
I mean, they've
I
said it
guess
themselves.
Yeah, well, I guess I was basing my answer off of, before the Iran war, but like you make a great point. Yeah, yeah, on the ground, at least, from where I'm from, and even just digitally, and the social media presence. Yeah, there is a divide forming, and it's just whether or not the Democrats really hit hard on exposing the Iran war of what it is, which is, um, an unjust war. We have no business being in it. Everybody knows that. Iran wasn't a threat to us. They're not making nuclear weapons. I mean, this is a blatant violation of international law, period. There are some reports out there that are, obviously, unfortunately, we are starving the Cuban people. They have no electricity. Yeah, I mean, it's and it seems like the progressive Democrats understand the reality here, and they're not, they're not writing nicely worded letters to the Trump, and they're,
Yeah.
it's
But
it's war at this point.
is the left, the Democratic Party, actually fighting this in Congress? It just feels like Congress isn't doing anything about any of this. It's almost
They're
like they
not.
want Trump just to mess up more so that they can use this later on.
That could be a strategy of what they're doing. Yeah, that's another great point you make, man. Although I got to be honest, a lot of the Democratic side of Congress, a lot of them are bought and sold by corporate America, and foreign lobbyists, and that's another big problem on why they're not being as harsh on Trump as some of the other progressive Democrats. It seems like the ones that are willing to fight the regime are those that are getting individual donations, doing grassroots campaigning, not being bought by corporate PAC money or APAC money. They are solely there for the people, and they're running for Congress because they want to represent the people in their district. So, unfortunately, we do have, some middle-aged Democrats that still haven't really caught on to what people are feeling, or they probably have, but again, they're not they're not good enough, man. They really gotta they have to understand the reality here of what this country is in right now. And if we don't take back the midterms, and they're going to do everything in their power to interfere, whether that's Elon Musk or um going into the I honestly don't understand the scope of what they may try to do. We still have a few months to see what happens, but um yeah, man, it's super concerning. However, we do need to elect progressive Democrats willing to uh fight the regime, because this is what it is. This is authoritarianism, period. You cannot negotiate with authoritarians. It's just it's impossible.
Yeah,
So yeah,
I want to explore that a bit more, because a lot of people may not know what you mean by that. I mean, for you, what do you,
yeah,
what do you feel is different today in the U.S., especially where, let's say Ohio, compared to
yeah.
before Trump's 2024 election?
It kind of varies state by state. Obviously, Ohio is a very Rust Belt working class state. I mean, especially in Northeast Ohio. I'm in Columbus, so I'm Central Ohio, but in Northeast Ohio, we have a lot of union guys over there that have pensions, and they're very blue collar people, and they were the backbone of what a true Democrat is. But we've seen in recent, or probably the past decade, of those people shifting to the right, because we see corporatism taking over the Democratic Party. So that's why they are flipping to a more popular or populist message, and that has been the MAGA message for the past decade as well. But it varies state by state. You have New York. I mean, Mayor Zoran Mamdani. Everybody's watching him right now because he is an incredible mayor, and he's actually getting shit done, right?
Seems like
And
it
he's
is, yeah.
delivering.
It seems like
Oh
he's
yeah, he's
delivering.
delivering on many, many promises, and he's only been there for 6 months or 5 months now. So, um, you know, and being a Democrat here in Ohio is a little different than being a Democrat in New York, or specifically New York City. So, I guess the Democrats here, in at least in Ohio, it's a little different in Michigan as well. But people are more centrist here in Ohio. Unfortunately, I'd say the 50, 60, 70-year olds usually vote borderline centrist Democrat. But we also have, some progressives that are rising to, to the challenge, and running as well. So, but yeah, it sort of varies state by state for sure.
What do you think is the appeal for example, the workers that are in Ohio? What is the Trump appeal for them?
That's a good question. It's unfortunately I truly believe that they're just brainwashed, and I hate to be so blunt, but um, I I've studied the MAGA movement and the Republican Party since, I don't know, 13 years old. They have never been pro worker. They've never been pro middle class. Like they are there to protect multimillionaires, and billionaires. So that's a good question, dude. And a lot of these folks in these rural areas, they obviously lean more conservative, and when they see their party get overrun by corporatism and corporate PAC money, especially, they look at Trump and they're just they're angry. A bunch of their rural hospitals are closing down. Government really isn't working in the rural areas here in Ohio, so they're just fed up. And what Trump has been doing over the past decade is just saying, "Hey, um, you know, the system's messed up. I feel for you. I'm here for you, and I relate to you," which is clearly not true. But for them, they agree with him because they are so angry and fed up. They're just like, okay, I'm gonna shift more towards the MAGA movement, and then they go down the rabbit hole of listening to people like, Nick Fuentes, or some insane lunatic that is raving about lizard people on online. So it's just, and then there they go, and it's hard to really pull them out of there. And that's what I try to do with my platform is I try to appeal to a more populist message, but at the same time I try to keep it intellectual as well. I try to have candidates come on and really have a free reign conversation about just bullshitting about U.S. politics. So
Yeah, I mean, even Trump has even lost Nick.
yeah, I know.
He's losing
I know.
a lot of people left,
And
right, and
that's the
center.
insane thing. That's the insane thing, dude, is that he's even losing like the far right, neo-fascists. And it's like, God, like what's the plan here? It's and his whole cabinet are just a bunch of hotheads and they're loose screws, dude. They have no idea what they're doing.
And it's also crazy, like when you look at who Trump is putting into certain positions, like the intelligence. What was that? The head of Fannie and Mac and Fannie is now is taking Tulsi Gabbard's position internally, and he has no experience on this. It's
Yeah, I haven't read too much on that. I heard that he worked in like construction or something. I can't remember, but I did see an
yeah.
article when I glimpsed over it real quick. But like, yeah, I mean, he's appointing people that have no experience in government, and who knows? I mean, who knows what they plan on doing? Tulsi Gabbard is certainly not trusted within the democratic structure. I mean, there are rumors out there that she's some Russian spy. You see Gavin Newsom posting like funny memes on X about her being like a Russian asset, which is hilarious. But and that's what I mean. It's like he's appointing people that have no business running these departments or intelligence agencies, and the rebound effect is people don't trust them. They could be up to anything. They're serving their own interests.
He just, it feels like he wants yes men around him. And
Big time.
it's so weird when you watch those videos where they're having a meeting and he's surrounded all by his people, and they
Yeah.
speak to him as if he's the North Korean leader. You know what I mean? It's just so scary to see. Am I watching the US or is this North Korea? I don't know what's going on here.
Right? No, man, it's seriously concerning. We have never dealt with this shit in the modern day America. Like nobody has seen this level of authoritarian loyalty within the cabinet. I mean, even going back to Nixon, you see every meeting you go in with these guys. Trump says some insane thing, and then they all go along with it and praise him, especially like Stephen Miller. That guy, there's a really great documentary that PBS released. They really focused on Stephen Miller because he's been around Trump for longer than anybody, and he is sort of this enforcer. And his role really isn't. I mean, there are people technically higher than him that should be more important, but you see him really enforcing the MAGA policies and everybody going along with Stephen Miller as he enacts whatever Trump tells him to do. So yeah, that's Stephen Miller is also a really big concern. I mean, he looks straight up out of an SS, document or picture or something. I mean, yeah, the guy is a fascist, period.
Mm. I mean, Donald Trump has dominated, as you mentioned there, American politics for over a decade now. Has Trump changed American democracy, or do you feel he's just exposed what was kind of always there behind closed doors?
So I was a Bernie guy. I've always been a Bernie dude, especially when I'm 25. So when I was around 15 or 16, that's when, the MAGA movement took over the Republican Party. And, obviously Hillary Clinton was the nominee. But I backed Bernie just because I was a progressive. At the time I was, really interested in democratic socialism. It was a new idea for America that, hey, considering we are the richest country on earth, there's no reason why everybody should have, we should have universal health care. If Hillary Clinton was elected, uh, clearly we would be in an entirely different world. She's more of a centrist, but at the same time, I do feel like, yeah, we would be in a much better position. I'm not sure if we would have gotten universal health care or, public transit, maybe, but yeah, I mean, I do believe that Trump, he did expose some, loopholes in our two-party, flawed democracy, and his goal is to exploit that, and he's been exploiting that for 10 years. But yeah, I mean, if we do take back power, especially a lot of the progressives, if we get a lot of progressives in, their main focus for the next 4 years should be to, identify the flaws in the system, and really focus on American democracy, on where the weaknesses lie. That starts with Citizens United for sure. Yeah, the Citizens United, that was in 2010, and it pretty much allowed corporations to unlimitedly fund, campaigns, and nobody wants corporate money in their politics. So that should be the number one priority for Democrats, and healthcare as well. Healthcare, people need healthcare
Yeah,
now.
yeah. But just on the Hillary point, I think, yeah, you're right. Things would be different, although at the same time, she's still a very strong, supported by corporate
Yeah,
lobbyists. And
definitely.
so
Yeah.
it's hard to know how different things would. They would surely be different. But one of the things that I would say I actually do like about Trump is that he he's shown, I think, especially when it comes to foreign policy, he's shown America's face, true face. I've lived in the Middle East, and we've always known about America's kind of position and kind of foreign policy, and the destruction that's happened in the Middle East. But Europe hasn't known that, or hasn't faced that, and Trump has taken that and applied it to everyone now. To Canada, to Greenland, to allies, and for the first time, uh, Europeans now see that face that they have never seen before, whereby people in the Middle East have seen that face numerous times. And so that's what I kind of like about him, is that he's shown the true face of, especially when it comes to foreign policy, which I feel is different of, America's foreign policy. America and its foreign policy is different to America and its domestic policy. I've always seen that difference, but that's the thing that
We the Western world has, you know our superpower has, been in charge since World War II. We all know that. But, for the very first time, Trump has dismantled the Western order. And now we're seeing countries like China and, the BRICS nations really start to form an alliance and a stronghold to counter U.S. dominance. So, I don't, especially on my channel, I don't usually cover geopolitics. I mean, I got to be honest, I mainly look at, domestic stuff, but everybody can feel the air flexing here. It's especially Europe. We're seeing Canada openly trade with China, and we're seeing a bunch of Western countries, Spain, especially Spain. They're starting to ramp up trade with China as well. But yeah, everybody's tired of our shit, as they should be. If I was if I was the leader of these countries, I'd be making the exact same moves, because we won't have any allies left at this point. If you have two eyes, 2 ears, and a conscience, uh, if that's our only ally, we're it's over, man.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
there's just, what's the point? Everybody knows what's going on over there.
Yeah.
It's clearly a genocide. I know it technically has to be proven in the International Criminal Court, but when we see uh, our politicians avoid the issue, or the word genocide, it's alarming, man. Everybody can see what's going on. Everybody can. It's just nobody wants to admit it for sinister reasons.
The government basically tells them it's not there, and the scientists are like, "We can see it. It's coming at our way." And they're like, "Don't believe them," and they're like, "Don't look up," and everyone's chanting, "Don't look up, don't look up," and it's like, what's going on? And this, I feel like we're in that world today, whereby we're seeing things with our eyes, and the government's telling us, "No, it's not real." I don't know what. It's just it is insane. It is insane.
Man, it's a perfect representation of American life right now. And I got to be honest, I do believe people are waking up. I believe people understand the situation we're in, but again, we can't conquer this battle uh, on the basis of individualism. We need cooperation. We need people out there protesting. We need people out there organizing, because the Republican Party, they will do anything in their power to remain in control. Even some of the moderate Republicans, they I think I read this one article that there was this primary race or this special election in Texas. Mind you, it is a rural, hardcore conservative town in Texas, and they had like this special election, and for the first time in a couple decades, they elected a Democrat. And again, like Texas, super conservative, very MAGA, but you go into the rural areas, and even them, they're flipping. And I read this article that if half of the counties flipped like the one in Texas, we would gain like 200 House seats or something astronomical like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean there's a serious threat to their majority right now, for sure. People are starting to wake up, even the longtime MAGA people. So yeah, I guess we'll just see what
Yeah.
happens in November, man.
I think November is gonna be a crazy shock to the system,
Damn right.
because a lot of the people that voted for Trump, the ones that you would consider normally are Democrats, um, they voted for change. They knew the situation was bad, the economic situation is not great. We're tired of the wars. We want economic growth. We want all those things, and Trump did the opposite of that. And so it's and to be honest with you, the backlash from the Iran war is still not fully felt. Because oil prices are going to continue to increase, gasoline is going to continue to increase all the way for the next couple of months, and so it's going to be more and more pressure on ordinary people when the promise was we're going to make things, we're going to bring inflation down, make things cheaper, and that's the opposite of what's happening.
Yeah, that's another great point, man. We have not seen anything, right? We are still using our oil reserves, as far as I'm concerned. So, in regards to the Strait, um, we could very well see $7 to $8 gas here in Ohio, which is insane, because in Ohio we're relatively cheap here. I mean, rent is overall decent compared to the rest of the country, and not only that, we really can't escape the tyranny of the car. Especially in the Midwest, but Ohio specifically, like we don't really have public transit. We do in Columbus, we do have the Coda bus and stuff, but I'd say a solid like 70-80% of, or maybe even 90% of Ohioans, they rely on their car to get anywhere, unless they're living in downtown Columbus or Cincinnati or Cleveland. And a lot of these guys can't afford $7, $8 gas. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in Ohio. I have a crazy prediction that we're going to see a massive blue wave here in the Buckeye State for sure, just because everybody's so car centric. And when they see those gas prices, they matter. They matter to Ohioans, man.
Yeah, and I have a prediction that Trump's going to call fraud on that.
Yeah. Yep. Oh yeah. Part for the course, dude, for sure. Yeah.
Critics of the left argue that those concerns about power and elite power overlook the fact that voters freely choose their leaders. How do you respond to that argument?
Yeah, so we're a two-party system. We've been a two-party system for however long, and it is a flawed democracy. I would love for America to adopt like a parliamentary system to where we have instead of two parties we have three or four parties. And there is that one party, the PSL, the Party for Socialism and Liberation, that's really making some incredible moves against both parties right now. But yeah, I really don't know how I feel about it. It's at least from my experience, I do believe that most Democrats, especially some of the establishment people, I may not agree with them on everything, but I do believe most of the Democrats are overall decent people, at least the people that I've talked to over the course of a year and a half that I've been doing media, but yeah, I mean, as much as I want a parliamentary system and other parties rise up to take the challenge, and they don't really have to run as an independent. They could run as like a separate, working families party or a PSL party or something. I want that more than anybody, but you know the funny thing is I know how the Republicans work, right? They will try and exploit any flaw that might come up. So, they view a third party vote as beneficial to them because it's splitting up the Democratic vote. So, we see a lot of PSL candidates, and mind you, they're doing incredible work. But at least looking at it through like a GOP lens, they could not be more thrilled that those people are running as third party, and then they use that to their advantage. And again, it's pretty much a game of chess with them.
Yeah, do you think it's the Republicans that's the issue or the system itself? Because the system that you have is where there's unlimited money that you could kind of put in it, and therefore, you could influence anyone can influence, someone by giving them enough money such that they use the ads now with AI. Look at what happened to Massey. So you can convince anyone with enough money that the other party is evil, and therefore you should go for this person.
Right. Yeah. It is total digital warfare, man. Yeah. Money in politics again. And I know I said this earlier, but it should be the number one priority. If we do take back power, the Democrats need to immediately tackle Citizens United because nothing will change. Nothing will change.
Just for the audience, explain what Citizens United is.
Citizens United was like a court decision that allowed corporations to influence our elections. So, back before, corporations had a threshold to of how much they can give. And yeah, like Citizens United pretty much ended all that and pretty much made it a reality of like, oh, corporations are people, so they're allowed to put in however much. I think the limit is like 16,000. I can't remember, but like, we see a lot of corporate PACs start to pop up. Home Depot is a really popular one here. They fund a lot of the Republican candidates that are, MAGA. And yeah, they just start funneling money into primaries and like especially general elections. But in the case of like Thomas Massey, which is insane to think about. That I think the PAC money in that primary race was like 30 million or something insane like that.
Thomas Massey thing is a weird thing because the logical thing that you'd conclude from that is this would backfire because it's so obvious that, money's buying this. And so when people look at this, they're like, what the hell? We're not living really in a democracy anymore because you can just buy whoever you want to buy and put them in a position of power. You're a bit younger than me, and the issue that back, I'm not that old, but back, let's say, 15 years ago, when we looked at the news, it was from the same kind of source. So, we look at the news, established media, or we look at newspapers and look at debates. And so we have kind of the same set of information that we can discuss, that we can kind of argue and debate about. The problem that we have today is that the information that you're getting is very different to the information I'm getting. And I don't know what information you're getting because you're getting it based on, the algorithm on your social media. And then there's these companies like Cambridge Analytica, whereby they will know what will anger you and therefore give you information specific to you. And so when I come talk to you, we're talking from different realities because your reality is very different to my reality. And therefore there is that polarization whereby I just can't believe what you're saying because that's just so far away from how I see the world. Right. That's the problem. I think a big part of the problem.
Absolutely, you're right on the money, man. I mean, algorithms run our life at this point, and there's been a challenge in our media for quite a while, but now we're seeing the oligarchs take control of CBS and start to censor free press for the first time here in America, and people, including myself, are struggling with that. Um, I personally get my news independently. So I know a lot of people are going that route as well. And I know that press freedom, I think there's another study that came out that we were like 61st or 69th or something and press freedom, which is at an all-time low for America because it was once viewed as this, beacon of freedom, right? But we're starting to see it collapse for the first time. But yeah, I guess we'll see what happens over the course of the next couple of years, because we could very well see media like we're seeing in Russia. It's very Kremlin-y here because we all know that Trump is this Russian asset, right? We've all known that for quite a while. So you're seeing the similarities, especially in the White House. Everybody's very, very Kremlin, and they're running it like a mob ring. So yeah, and we might see
Yeah.
media similar to what we see in Russia today.
Yeah, I don't know if I buy the whole Trump is a Russian asset. He has helped Russia a lot with this Iran war, for sure. But I'm not sure about that. But in terms of how he runs, I mean, it seems like a lot of things are run in the same manner. And there is this kind of I'm not saying that that's a Russian thing, but in the U.S. it seems like there's this kind of mafia kind of element to things, especially when it comes to foreign policy. I
Yeah,
mean, the fact that you're negotiating with Iran and then you just kill them to get a better deal
right.
or better concessions. What world is this we're living in? This is what mafia does, right?
Yeah,
Do you accept my terms? No, I'm going to kill you. Next person, do you accept my terms? No, I'm going to kill. It's just insane.
yeah,
It's just
yeah.
insanity.
And I want to go into the Russian influence, just a tad here. But yeah, I mean, we've had Russian interference in our 2016 election. We had Russian interference in the 2024 election. So, and if anybody who's watching, I highly suggest reading the book American Compromise by Craig Unger, and he did an incredible report on Trump's ties to Russia for or since the late 1970s, early 80s. There were KGB agents living in Trump Tower, or I think on the third floor of Trump Tower, back in the 80s and 90s. So, I mean, he had his, Miss Universe pageants in Moscow, and, the fact that, back people want cheaper groceries. People want cheaper gas. I mean, like the thing about Ohio is just it's very working class. People on average here, people make anywhere from 40 to 60 or $70,000. I mean, that's the average Ohioan salary. So, their needs are a lot different than needs in California or New York or Oregon or whatever. But yeah, I guess it's more on the consumer. Like they are consumers for this economy, so they want cheaper prices for when they go to Walmart or Kroger, or they hit the gas station, and healthcare, especially in the rural areas. That's a big one. We're seeing a lot of rural hospitals close down, and some of them, even with childcare as well. Childcare, we are we are one of the bottom of the barrel states when it comes to childcare. I think you have to double check me on that, but states like West Virginia, which is right next door, which mind you has been economically devastated for many decades. People are going to West Virginia for childcare because they have better childcare than us.
Yeah, get things cheaper. It seems like the solution to making things cheaper is put tariffs and start a war to raise oil. That is the solution.
Yes. Oh, 100%. Yeah, people are abided by the economy. At least most people are. They they look at the gas price, they look at the price of lettuce, and they make a determination of what if the president is good or bad. There's not a whole lot of critical thinking with certain people here in the Midwest, because they just they look at prices and they're just like, oh, okay, is this cheaper or am I paying more? And then they just relate it to politics somehow. So, and that's why I do what I do with my career, because I want people to think more, and we, instead of bringing people down, we want to lift people up and realize okay, why is my lettuce $3 instead of 89 cents like it was 4 years ago? Why is my gas $5 compared to even a few months ago when it was like 2.89? Why is that? And then we go more into economics.
What worries you about the future of American democracy? Because I'm not based there, and when we look at it, it just seems like it's just going to get worse and worse, especially given that people voted for something with Trump that was supposed to be very different, and they got exactly the opposite. And so there must be such a loss in trust in the democratic process and in actually voting, whereby some people will be angry and vote against Trump, but some people will just leave that process altogether because they're like, what's the point?
Right. People are very defeated right now. And for the first time in American history, we are sort of in this futureless present right now, where we really can't predict or think about a future, just because it's been utter chaos for
It feels like
the
10 years, but
past
it's only been a year.
what year and a half. So I mean, it does feel like for me, it's been I've been I've been dealing with MAGA, and I've been calling them fascists for freaking ever, man. And I was the first dude on the train saying okay, Trump's now in the picture. This guy's clearly insane. And I just, for me, I can't catch a break. It's like, holy shit, man. And their attacks on the media, and turning corporations into people. It's just it's it's so typical. It's so typical, and anybody can see what they're doing. So, in regards to the future, um, it's bleak, man. I hate to sound like a pessimist, but the odds are against us for sure. We're already seeing a different world here in the United States, but in 2 years, it could be unrecognizable. It already is, in my opinion, but we might truly see poverty like we've never seen before. It'll make the Great Depression.
Yeah, it is. I just feel like with Trump, he has bitten a bit more than he can chew, especially with the Iran thing, and he doesn't know how to get out of it because he has this image that he has to kind
Yeah.
of portray of being strong and
Hmm.
never weak. You never lose. You're always winning, winning, winning. Even when
Right.
it's the biggest foreign policy failure in my
Yeah.
lifetime, I feel like we're witnessing at the same at this moment, and so the more he waits, the more prices are going to go up. But he can't make a
Yes.
deal because of he's surrounding himself with all the pro-Israel, pro-Hawk kind of the people, and so he's really has his back to the
Yeah.
wall. And I just don't know how he's going to get out of it. For him, he's used to the
Yeah.
world of real estate where you don't, if it's a bad deal, I just don't get into the deal. Just get out,
Yeah.
find another deal. But this is not real estate. You have to make concessions. You have to kind of like meet halfway. Yeah, it's just another one. And I think he doesn't have that experience when it comes to.
Right. No, 100%, man. Like his only experiences in real estate and his bankruptcies as a businessman. So, he's running the country as some like, again, a mob ring slash like super corrupt real estate company. Like it's just um I'm at a loss for words most of the time. And in regards to Israel, like we saw that clip of Trump handing the White House key over to Netanyahu.
They're doing it in front of people's faces. Like it's just like we don't care anymore. This is it.
Definitely, yeah. They are kicking sand in our face right now, and it's just we can't catch a break. It's the Epstein files. People, if there's anything that unites the left and the right now, is the Epstein files. That like everybody is super pissed about that. Even at Turning Point USA rallies, when they bring up the subject of Epstein, they whoever's speaking, they're just like, raise your hand or speak out if you're satisfied with the release of the Epstein files, and everybody's like, no, and these guys are like openly authoritarian neo-fascists, like, and they're not even satisfied, and yeah, that's the number one thing that people are uh, just hitting the nail on. They're just like, we're not going to forget about this. There are still 3.5 million files that have not been released yet, and the current files that were released are bad enough. So who knows what's in the other 3.5 million files, man? And we should not forget that. They are abided by the law to release those, and
Yeah.
and they have it, and it's super super concerning.
Yeah, yeah. I guess let's end with a good note. Well, what gives you hope about the next couple of years?
What gives me hope? The people's will to fight back, because there is a drive in America, in Americans in particular. There is a drive for us to make change, and as long as we cooperate, as long as we start organizing, and we're seeing that on the Democratic side, and we're seeing the Republicans leave their party as well. Um, we just have to spend the next few years giving up some comfort, and it's our duty as Americans to stand up to authoritarianism and fascism, and that's pretty much what gives me hope, man. We need to, together as one people, one goal, right? We need to dedicate some of our time to make serious change here, because if we don't do that, uh, we're toast, man. It's done. It's over. If all of us do not rise together as one people, we are, there is no hope for us. So, you know, I guess again, I'm around so many people in the political arena here, and everybody's pissed off. We're seeing a lot of sacrifices made already, but it's just a matter of really convincing people, like, hey, this is our moment, guys. This is our moment because we will not have a country if the midterms don't go our way, and they'll do everything in their power to rig them or
Yeah,
interfere in our
yeah, for
elections.
sure.
So
And
it's something to
sometimes
keep in mind.
the people that you think you're battling are not the people that are actually who are against you. A lot of times, even the other side do want the same things. Unfortunately,
Mhm.
they're being given certain information, you're being given certain
Right,
information, and it's very hard, therefore, to kind of align on things. But
right.
dialogue is a big part of it, is to have that conversation with people for sure. I mean, if you could reform
Absolutely.
one aspect of the American political system tomorrow, what do you think would have the biggest impact?
Citizens United for sure. Like we need money out of politics. We need to get rid of corporate PACs. And I know I said this countless times earlier, but nothing will change, even on the Democratic side, if they don't focus on getting big money out of big politics. Uh, we will just cruise along this super weird, like techno authoritarian society where we have Meta and Apple and all these like mega
Yeah.
corps influencing our politics here. So if it could be something, it would be that, and focusing on um, reforming our healthcare system because when somebody dislocates their shoulder, even when they're insured, nobody should be spending
Yeah.
$3,000 to like nobody can afford that. Every
Yeah, it's crazy that the biggest debt for people is health debt in the US. That's an insane thing. Which if from people that when they hear that in Europe, they're like, because obviously things are very different. Um, but yeah, Devin, it's been great speaking to you. I mean, if people wanted to know more about your work, what you do, where can they find that? Where can they see you?
Yeah, so yeah, if you go to my Instagram at the Culture Codex or the culturecodexpodcast.com, you can find all of my social links on there. Again, we're mostly Ohio based, but we do have a lot of conversations with politicians and candidates and journalists, professors, all of that.
Devin, thank you so much.
Yeah, Hadi,
I
thank you, man.
appreciate
Yeah,
it.
I'm a
Thank
big
you.
fan, big fan of your show, dude. You're doing incredible work, dude, for sure. Yeah, man, absolutely.